So hello, my name is Pedro Perez and I'm the director of Alegre Ballet Folklorico. And today I'm going to do a tutorial on how to make a practice skirt with doble vuelo. Now I do have a disclaimer to make. I am not a seamstress. Okay? I've never taken any kind of sewing class. I've never anything instructional, professional, or anything like that to say that I've taken it to learn how to do any of the vestuario that I do. No, never done it. Everything that I've learned has been through trial and error, through lots of observation and looking at what I do have and just trying to make a copy of it. Basically, I would take the garments that I already had and try to trace out my own patterns. Then I realized for practice skirts, there's no need for a pattern. You just need to know a few simple math skills and just be a little brave. So the way I'm going to show you is the way I figured to be the easiest way to make a skirt, in my opinion, and what I've done and what I've worked with. I've also seen other people do skirts the exact same way, and I've even talked some people into doing their skirts this way. It comes out a lot faster. You will need some broadcloth. Broadcloth is the easiest to work with. It's typically what people want to make their skirts out of because it's kind of lightweight. You can also, I prefer for my practice skirts for my ladies, a nice thick polyester because it has more weight to it. But the easiest fabric to work with is broadcloth. Now I'm using 60-inch wide broadcloth. Most stores like Hobby Lobby and Joann's, they typically sell 45-inch wide. So with the 7 yards that I bought, I was able to make a practice skirt for a young lady who is 9 years old. She has a 25 waist and I believe it's a 30, what did I write down? It's like 31, 33 inch length. So I was able to buy 7 yards and make the skirt easily. I will be doing the video in parts so that it's not as long, but roughly it takes me about, to make a simple practice skirt, it takes about anywhere from 3 to 4 hours, depending on if I have any distractions and hoping I don't have any problems along the way. So without further ado, I am going to begin my practice skirt. So we're ready to begin making our practice skirt. What you're going to need to have handy is, of course, your fabric, your broadcloth that you've bought and picked out the colors that you need. You're going to need your measuring tape so that you can measure out what you're going to need. Get yourself some straight pins because you want to keep all your cuts straight in the fabric from moving. Have yourself a pen, preferably a chalk pencil, something that will easily be removed just in case you make stray marks. And of course your scissors. I should get those. And of course your scissors, so that way you can cut out your fabric. Give yourself plenty of space and you're going to get your fabric. Of course I like to use broadcloth when making a practice skirt, especially for one the size that we're going to make. The young girls, the children, I don't want to make them struggle. The older ones, oh honey, the struggle's going to be real for them. But for today, we're going to get our broadcloth. I am going to cut out circles. So the first thing I'm going to do to show you how to do this the easy way, if you're lucky enough to find the 60-inch wide fabric, you're just going to want to make, especially for one this small, you're going to want to cut out a complete circle. The easiest thing to do when cutting it out is straighten out your fabric. Like so, edge to edge, take out any bumps, lumps, or what have you. And I will quote from one of my favorite movies, know your colors and know your fabrics. For anyone that's seen the Cher and Winona Ryder classic Mermaids with Christina Ricci. Love that movie. So first, I'll fold it in half. And then because we're going to make a skirt that's smaller, I know I can fit the circle in here. The length of the skirt is going to be 31 inches. So I know I want to make my ruffles 8.5 to 8 1/4 inches wide. We're going to put the ruffle on the outside of the skirt. So what I want to do is I want to cut the bottom. I don't want to cut it out as long as 31 inches. Since we're going to be putting the ruffle, you can cut off at least 7 inches. I like to give at least a good inch to 1.5 inches for overlap from the ruffle to the bottom of the fabric of the circle that we cut for the skirt. So for the 8.5 inch ruffle, I'm going to cut off 7 inches from the bottom of the skirt. So taking off 7 inches from the bottom of a 31 inch length skirt would make the skirt 24 inches. However, we also want to add the circle at the top for the waist. We don't want to forget that. So with that in mind, we need to add back in a 3-inch circle that we'll cut out from the center. I'll explain once we get there. So when we add back in, when we take our 31 inches, we subtract the 7 inches, but then add back in the 3 inches, we're actually going to have a 27-inch radius. We're going to use them math skills that you thought you'd never use. So, follow my lead here. Trust me, this works. We folded it lengthwise, widthwise, so it's no longer 60 inches wide. We're now 30 inches wide. We're going to fold it again, long ways. Like so. Fold it again like so. Again, from the center of our circle, we want to go down 27 inches. We'll take our measuring tape, go from this corner, make sure it's even. You don't want a lopsided skirt when you're done. And we're going to measure down 27 inches. Boom, right at the mark, 27 inches. God, I'm good. So now all I want to do is straighten it out. Get rid of all these lumps and bumps. I wish it was this easy to get rid of the ones on my body like this. If I could just flatten it out and get rid of some lumps, that'd be great. Right there, 27 inches from our center. Here's the fold where we folded the halfway and then folded the long way. Now, we want to cut a circle out. So we're going to take the corner of the edges and fold it over towards the center. Now, the lengthwise isn't going to be the same. I can already tell you that. I can look at this right here, you can see that. As you can see, the length of our 27 inches is shorter than the length of this. It's okay. That is a little bit of scrap. There will be some scraps that you'll have left over. I know there's other ways where you can probably cut it out and make the full skirt and leave practically, virtually, no scrap pieces at all. But you want time consuming? This way, you use the bulk of the fabric. You'll have some scrap, but it won't be much. So here we are. We have a very nice triangle. Our center is up here. Lumps and bumps, get rid of them. Our center is here. The length of the skirt goes down to here. My suggestion to you for your first time would be to pin it down along the edges. There we are. See, when I picked up my arm, because it's so hot here, thank you, Texas, arms are sticking to the fabric. Right there. Right there. Here we go. So, now we have our triangle. What we want to do from here is we want to mark our circle. Now, because of the way we have it folded, it should come out into a circle from here. Starting at 27 inches, we're going to put this right at the 27-inch mark. Hold down my measuring tape and mark it where we're going to cut. We are then going to move this over a couple of inches, maybe 3 or 4 inches. I will leave that entirely up to you. Make sure this is right back in that corner at 27 inches to here. And I'm going to keep moving. Center, right here. Another 3 or 4 inches, 27 inches, mark it. We're almost there. Over again, 27 inches. And one more time, last time, 27 inches. Boom. While we have it here, let's go ahead and mark the circle for the waist. We decided that we're going to do a 3-inch circle cutout. So, 3 inches, mark it. 3 inches, pins right in the way, mark it. 3 inches, mark it. Boom. So we have our 2 cutout points. We have the waistband that we'll cut out here, and then the length of the skirt that we'll cut out here. So let's go ahead, we say a prayer, and then we cut. No matter how many times I do this, I always get a little nervous when it comes time to actually cutting the fabric. Even though I feel very confident with cutting out the fabric, there's always that little bit of nerve that it's not going to happen. So here we go again, cutting out about 3 inches. yet. I'm not going to unfold this yet because I'm going to use this. Remember, we're making it doble vuelo, so that means we need to make 2 circles. But we have the length of our skirt from the end to the center, 24 inches. When we add the ruffle, because we took off about 7 inches, because we're going to put the 8.5 inch ruffle there, once we add that on there, that'll cover the rest of the length. So, this is 1 circle. Now we got to cut out the 2nd circle. So now I'm going to change the way that I'm going to cut out this next circle. Ordinarily, because I use the 60-inch fabric, I would cut out the circle the exact same way. I would fold it in half widthwise, and then I would fold it again lengthwise. I'm going to put this to the side because we're going to use this in just a moment. But since I know the majority of fabric stores only sell 45-inch wide fabric, let's get rid of this. Since I know the majority of stores only sell 45-inch fabric, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to cut out 4 half circles. Now, after you cut out your first half circle, I'm going to do this a different way so that you can possibly follow the same pattern of crazy that I do. And it will help you save on some fabric. Again, you want to open up your fabric, open it up to the width that you want, to the whole width. And then from here, we'll do the same thing, except instead of folding it widthwise, just lay it out flat. Now, I'm using the same one, so imagine this has another 15 inches towards the end. And this helps especially when you have to do the bigger skirts. Even when you have 60-inch fabric, most of the time you still have to cut out half circles for adult-size skirts. I don't know how many giraffes some of y'all have in your group. I have a couple. I love them. When they open up their arms, boom, take up the whole stage. Love it, it's beautiful. So notice I'm just kind of folding. I'm not really going to measure it, because once you have your first one cut out, you can use that to kind of measure out your fabrics at that point. So now I already cut this out only so that I can show you real quick how we got the length of our skirt, the main part of our skirt. But you're going to want to keep this whole, so that way you can measure it this way. From your fold out to where you've already cut it. This will save you on some fabric. I've got about 3-4 inches leeway here still. So I can take that down. I can pull this over to where I have maybe about 1 inch. Save it within 1 inch of my life right there, and find where to fold it at. So I'm going to fold right here. I'm going to slide this whole thing over. It's like trying to lay out a flat sheet. I can never just throw it out there and it land beautifully like it does in those commercials. But you should see me when I drink a Pepsi. I can throw my hair back just like Cindy Crawford. That would be my next video. Maybe not. Take out the lumps and the bumps. Put it out here again, just to make sure. I just want to make sure that I did it correctly. This is my way of verifying. See, I shouldn't even have taken that out. Now once I take it out, boom, right there. We got it right there. So, here's where we need to put it at, where we can cut it and it won't go into the space that we already cut through. I'll fold it again diagonally. Again, I would recommend that you pin it down. Children, don't try this at home. But I'm going to go ahead and just stick this on here. Why? Because I'm thug life like that. Does that fit? I can slide it over just a little bit more, pull it up, pull it up, pull it up. Right there. I think I've got an even fit. And then I'll cut. Get it together. Oh. There we go. An identical match. We now have our two circles cut out. Now, ordinarily, it would have just been the one piece of fabric, but since I had to double, I went ahead and doubled it up. And half circle. But since I doubled the fabric, I actually have two half circles. It's already one half of the skirt. And on the other one, you want to do one more thing before you unfold it. Find a point where you only folded it once. Make sure not to cut where it has two pieces of fabric. Find where the fabric only folds once, because you'll have one, and then this one has two pieces of fabric in it. Get one of the pieces that only has one. Take your scissors and cut right down that middle. Right down the middle. Now this does help when you're cutting this, that it's pinned, because it's going to stay in place. Let me just cut straight down that middle. Look at that. Boom. Done. Now that you've cut that line out, you can take out your straight pins. Or your gay pins. Whatever orientation your pins want to be, it's all okay. I don't discriminate. Put them away, because you don't want them falling around all over the place where someone can step on them. And as you unfold your fabric, you will see that you have your quarter circle. your half circle and full circle. The majority of your skirt is almost done. Now comes the fun part. The ruffles. So now that we've cut out the circles to our skirts, we're ready to start cutting out the ruffles. Now we have 60 inches in the width of our fabric. We want to cut out 9-inch wide ruffles. From those 9-inch wide ruffles, we should end up with a ruffle that's anywhere from 8 1/4 to 8 1/2 inches wide. Depends on how you do your ends. I like to run it through a serger to finish off the end of the fabric and then fold it under its sew. That's the way I usually do it. It finishes the garment, it finishes the ends of the fabric so they won't fray. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to measure out every 9 inches and I'm going to mark it. So let's use this side of the fabric. I feel more comfortable with this side. Now, as I'm doing this, I do want to remind you, I am not a professional seamstress. I've never learned in a classroom. No one's ever sat down and said, this is the way it's supposed to be done. You're taking me on 20 years of experience, of a lot of trial and error. If you're still watching at this point, it's a lot of trial and error that I've gone through, so I'm taking all that trial and error away from you. But again, I have never taken a sewing class. And when I tell the actual seamstresses that, they're amazed that I can do even what I can do. One day I'll tell you the story of how I used to thread my sewing machines. Lord help me. No, the Lord did help me. He sent me an angel to show me exactly how to do it right. So here we go. This should be the last of it. See, not measuring it right. 9 inches. 9 inches. 9 inches. 9 inches. 9 inches. And 9 inches. I will not explain my obsession with 9 inches. I'm just going to say that we need 9 inches in ruffle. So, going back to the comment I just made about how I am not a seamstress, I am going to tell you right now what I'm about to do, no seamstress in their right mind would tell you to do. Anyone that's actually made garments will tell you not to do this. I'm going to tell you how to do it correctly, the way that they would tell you how to do it. And it would help to make sure that your garment is done properly and is cut evenly. Most people would tell you that you need to fold your fabric. And I've done this before with certain fabrics. Satins, sometimes thicker polyester, they would tell you to fold your fabric so that it's all even in the edges, and fold, like so. Just fold it back and forth over and over and over again, so that you can lay it out. If you have a rotary cutter, that would make this just as easy. If you had a rotary cutter, you could just as easily mark your 9 inches. 9, 9, 9, and 9. Mark it here. Cut it evenly here so that the whole thing, once you make sure this is all evened out, you can do that. And cut it evenly along the ways. Measure your 9 inches, measure your 9 inches, all the way across this fabric, and then cut it across. And that would make sure that you have nice, straight, even lines. That is perfect. That is completely your option where you can pin it and do that. If you want to make sure that you have those very, very straight lines. Me, I'm always on the go. And I usually have more than one skirt or dress I need to make. Certain fabrics, usually broadcloth is one of them. You can do this too. Again, I do not recommend this for everyone, and most people will tell you don't do it. Once you cut your little slit of 9 inches, you have your 9-inch strip. The reason most people tell you not to do that is because it will kind of pull the fabric a little bit. In fact, some worse than others. Broadcloth, you will have a little bit of pull on here, but seeing as how you're going to need to make at least anywhere from 12 to 15 yards of ruffle to go around the bottom of the skirt, this to me is a lot faster. I'm on time constraints usually. Got it. So I have one. This is the only other bad thing about it. You get all these extra little threads laying around the wood. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 strips that I'm going to be working with now. They're all 2.5 inches wide, so 2.5 inches long, 2.5 yards long. I'm sorry, 2.5 inches long, 2.5 yards, 2.5 yards long. So for every 2, that's 5 yards. 2.5, 5 yards. So I've got 2, 4, 6, 5, 10, 15 yards. I have 15 yards of ruffle right here, ready to go. All I got to do is put them end to end. Now, I'm about to take it to the serger and serge it end to end. Like so. I'll take one end and put it to the end of another one. Now, what you want to make sure, you're going to do this with all of it, what you want to make sure is that when you put them all end to end, that you put the seams, what you're serging, all on the same side. So when I finish with this one, I'm going to come down to the other end and make sure that this is going to be the inside of the skirt. And then go on to the next piece and serge it together. And you got to make sure you Trust me, you want to make sure that the inside of the skirt is always going to be on the same side for all of this. So here we go. We're going to serge the ends together. We've got two different ends of the ruffles that we've put together, and we're going to put them into the machine. Now this is going to make sure that it's not only sewn together, it's going to cut off any excess and finish the garment, finish the fabric so that it will not fray like it looks like it will where all the other pieces are at. So as I said, from here we want to make sure that we stay on the inside, and we're going to slide our way down across. Notice the seam on the other side? That's the outside of the fabric. That's going to be the outside of the skirt, people can see. That's the inside. We want to make sure we stay on the inside. Stay on the inside. And then put it together with another piece of fabric, with another end of the ruffle. Now, if you don't have a serger, you can always sew it to put the seam, and then go back and use the zigzag to sew on the inside so that way it won't fray or come apart. So again, here we got seam number 2, and we're going to keep going to finish off the whole thing. Okay, now that we finished putting all 6 pieces end to end, we're going to serge the sides of the ruffle so that way we can go ahead and try to finish this garment. And again, the reason why we're going to do this is because we don't want any of this fraying happening. We don't want your skirt falling apart and threads coming out all over the place. So when you put this through the machine, it's going to finish it off so that way it looks nice, clean, even. A nice, clean, even edge that you can work with that will not fall apart on you on stage. So now it's time to run all 15 yards. First this side, and then we'll flip it over and do the other side. Okay. So now that we've got all of our ends together, what we're going to do here, or what I've already started doing, is I'm folding over the part that's serged and sewing it down. I have it set to a 4, I actually set to 4.5. Oh, excuse me. And what I'm doing is I'm taking the part that we serged and folding it over so that it's not noticeable. What this does is this hides it on the back of the ruffle to where it's not so noticeable. And on the other side, oh, let me do a little bit more. All you see are the nice clean seams. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this to both sides, this one and then the other side, to finish off the ruffle. Okay, so now that I've done both sides, they're serged and folded and sewn inside, what I want to do now is I want to ruffle it. And you have your choice of rufflers and gatherers. I'm going to gather. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off my foot and put this gathering foot that I purchased. A ruffler is a bigger apparatus and it'll push the fabric in to do all these wonderful little pleats and things, but this is just going to gather it. So I'm going to put this foot in, put my fabric down underneath. I'm going to set this at a 3.5. So once you have your ruffler in, you can start sewing the fabric. I always sew it close to where I have folded over the serge side. And again, this is going to gather rather than ruffle. So I'm going to go through the whole strip, and when it comes out, it should have a nice gather to it. Now, depending on how tightly you set it, it could be really tight or it could be really loose. So this looks a little tight to me, so I'm going to loosen it up just a little bit more. If it's too tight when at the end, you can always kind of spread it out or bust the thread to kind of space it a bit if you need to. But usually I just let it go with whatever it comes out with. I try not to let it gather too much, just enough to give it some flair. Go. So here's what's next. We're going to take your half circles or your circles, and we're going to sew them together. So that way they make their complete circles. You should have 4 half circles or 2 full circles. Okay? So if you have the half circles, you need to do one line that's completely together on both sides. And then you do that on the other side as well with your other piece of fabric. Since I cut this one into a circle, I don't need to do that. Then you need to make the decision. Do you want 1 waistband or 2? I'm going to put 2 waistbands on this one, on this skirt. So what I want to do is on the sides, I want to sew down the 2 circles together, leaving a space for the waistband on one side and then the same on the other. So now that you have your skirt pretty much together, now it's time to add the ruffle. And as you can see, I've already started putting the ruffle on my skirt. Wow, that got like that. And the way I'm doing this, I'm putting where the ruffled part of the skirt is just over that serge. I'm sewing it down at a 3. You'll want to do a 3, a 3.5. The higher the number, the wider the stitch. You don't want too wide of a stitch, because if you do, the heavier the fabric is on the ruffle, then the more it's going to, it can weigh it down and come off of the skirt. Now here is where, if I wanted to do a different color ruffle, I could have. Since I had those 2.5 to 3 yards left, I could have bought another 2 or 3 yards and done a different color. I could have bought a floral, anything different. Now remember, I only bought 2 or 3 yards for the ruffle because it was the 60-inch wide. So if it were only 45 inches wide, I would probably need to buy an extra, at least 1 more yard, so it would be about 4 yards, 4.5 yards to complete your ruffles. So I'm going to now go all around the edge of this skirt, all around the edge of the skirt with the ruffle that we have made. Look down here on the floor. Yes, I tossed it down on the floor. It's all right here, and put it all on the edge of this skirt. and cut it there. So here we've reached the beginning of where I started sewing. I cut off whatever excess I knew I wasn't going to need. I measured that out by luck to be just about enough. So what I want to do next is I want to sew the ends together. If you have the threads, your serger still threaded, you can always serge it again. Or, as I was saying before, if you don't have a serger, you can sew it. Always go back to reinforce that edge. And then switch to a zigzag. And then with the zigzag, go on the inside of that seam, from the inside to the edge of the fabric. And this way, since if you don't have a serger, that zigzag will keep the fabric from fraying if it ever gets down to that point. It'll make sure that it's not going to fray anymore from there. So we go back, we still have this one little bitty hole. Don't forget to take care of that little bitty hole. Put it back in the machine. I go back just a bit to where I had already sewn it down. I can feel the edge of the fabric right here, so I will sew it down. Oh, be sure to switch back to a regular straight seam. There we go. And then we'll sew it down. And violi, we're done. Oop. Only one part left, and that's the waistband. You can cut it off there. Okay, so here we are ready to finish the last part of our skirt. If you'll notice, I'm at a different location. I'm back at home because what we're going to need for the last part, for the waistband, is an iron. And although there's usually an iron at the studio, I couldn't find it. So here's what we're going to do with our waistband. Now, I started with a a piece of fabric, not going to say slice, a piece of fabric that was yay big. This one is a little bit smaller than what I normally work with. This one was only about 3.5 inches wide. Usually, 4 inches. This one was 4 inches wide. Usually I like to do them at least 6 inches wide. They come out a little bit wider at the end. But what you're going to do is you're going to take your strip of fabric. You're going to want to make sure that it's the length that you're going to need it in. I always like to add an extra 10-12 inches to the ends of the waistbands, just so we can have enough length to tie them with. Now our waist was going to be, it is going to be 25 inches. Now we're doing 2 waistbands, so I need one side to go halfway around and then the other side to go the rest of the way around. So with it being 25 inches, I decided to go with 26 inches, so it'll go a ½ inch overlap on both sides. I hope I'm not going too fast for y'all. So 26 inches, so it'll have a ½ inch on one side of the skirt and a ½ inch on the other side of the skirt. to overlap the front and the back. So that would mean we'll need 13 inches on one side of the skirt and 13 on the other. So with that being said, I cut out 2 strips. Now these are not 13 inches long, these are actually 40 inches long. So that way it'll have plenty of room. It's got to wrap all the way around, so it's got to do the whole 25, and then it's going to have some slack on both ends. So you can do it, the waistbands, as long or as short as you think you'll need to. She's got a tiny waist, so she doesn't need that long of an end to tie around her waist. Each waistband I did 40 inches long. The next thing you'll want to do is you will want to sew. Now I do this the old-fashioned way, the way I used to do ruffles. I sewed a very wide stitch all the way around the top circle of the skirt. Let's pull this up some. Around the top. Oh, don't zoom in. The top portion of the skirt. Okay? There's the bottom, here's the top. So around the waist part of the skirt, I sewed just about a ½ inch away from the edge, a very wide stitch. Now the widest my machine goes is 6.0. And what I'm going to do here is I am going to take one of the threads. See if I can do this. Take one of the threads and pull it, and that will gather the fabric like so. Okay, now when I first started doing this, this is how I used to do my ruffles. I would go along the edge of the ruffle, and all 10, 12, 15 yards, I would gather like this. You want to be gentle with it, and you want to use a wide stitch, because if you use a small stitch, and if you're not very gentle with it, it will bust, and you will have to do the thing all over again. So we're going to gather it all up, and then once it's gathered, we're going to take our waistband that has been ironed, and we're going to pin the skirt to the waistband. Okay? Now what I did was I got the middle of the waistband and put it right around where the middle of the skirt is. If you've got 4 half circles, then you'll easily find the middle, because the middle of the skirt will have that seam. So that'll be the middle, and you can just pin this to that middle. Okay? Pin it also on the end, fold it in to fold in that last seam on both sides. And then what you'll do, space it out, and you'll sew it down. I fold in my corners. I sewed all around the edges and go all the way down through the machine in this direction. And then when I get to here, I will stop, and I will keep the needle down while I spread this ruffle inside the waistband. Then I will gently go through the machine and sew it down, which is what I've already done with this side. And unfortunately, I do not have an extra set of hands with me right now to help me record this. So I will go ahead and do the other side and finish up the top portion of the skirt. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the final step to our skirt. What we want to do here is finish off the ends of where our ties are. So what I do here is I fold that little gap from between the ties inward to the skirt, and then I will sew it. You can see that? Sew it down all the way around to the other side of the skirt. And when you're done, it should look like this, where you have the end of the skirt with your tie. It's sewed down all the way around, and then once you're done sewing it from one side all the way down to the other, go back to the end of the V, the tip of that little V, and I always do like a little zigzag or back and forth stitch here, just so that way with any pulling and tugging or any it's not going to bust the seam of the thread and open it up. If not, you'll have to keep re-sewing that seam every so often if you don't do this. But this at this point would finish up my skirt. And she is done. As you can see, she has plenty of vuelo for a young lady. If you were to pull on the skirt here, you can see still lots more vuelo to go. Plenty for this young lady to give lots of floreando with the falda. And you can see the gathers on the inside to know that it's going to have plenty of vuelo on the opposite side as well. She's lovely, she's beautiful, she's opulent. But more important, she is complete. Okay, so we are done with our practice skirt. I hope this video was helpful to any and all of you who are interested in making your own vestuarios, practice skirts, or what have you. Please be sure to subscribe to my group page, Alegre Ballet, which is where you'll find this video. And if I get some likes, then I will do another video for a tutorial on how to make a simple peasant blouse to go with that practice skirt. So be sure to hit the like button, be sure to hit subscribe. Again, I'll even be simple. If I get 100 likes on this, then I will go ahead and make the tutorial on how to make a simple peasant blouse. So again, thank you for watching. If you've gotten to this point of the video, be kind, especially if you're a seamstress. Remember, I am not a seamstress. I did not take any kind of classes in this. This is just how I did it. So I'm sure there will be people that are going to say how I did not do this correctly. But my skirt's done. I'm happy with it. This is the way I do all my practice skirts. I haven't had any complaints with the ladies I've made them for. And if you have any questions, be sure to put them in the comments below. If you have any other suggestions on tutorials that I could possibly do, please be sure to put those in the comments as well. Thank you.